What's up, you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, and we're back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Yongnuo YN600EXRT Mark 1 and Mark 2 flashes. Now, not to be confused with the LED light, the YN600. No, we're talking about the speed lights for your cameras. And chances are, if you purchase this, you're trying to get better image quality for your images. You're trying to get a better image out of your camera. You're trying to get better lighting. You're trying to get better everything. And chances are, if you bought this, you're on a budget, and it's 120 bucks at most if you get a certain package, and you do get what you pay for. It's a very frustrating flash. It's not the ideal flash, but I've also used the 500 series of the Yongnuo, and I've also used the 400 series Canon flashes from back in the day, and so I do have something to compare this from. I'm not just speaking from just the 2 years of experience I've been doing with my my YN600s. I'm actually talking about also the experiences with my Canon flashes to compare these two. So when you talk about these problems, when I talk about these problems, I'm talking from multiple flash experiences. So let's get right into the problems. I'm not going to hold you guys any longer. Overheating. Overheating is a huge problem with the YN600EXRT. The reason being is because even if I am, putting the flash extender, the battery life extender on the flash and shooting high power bursts, and then it overheats. Or if it's outside and it overheats, no matter what, that overheating takes a long time to go away. And the overheating is to try to save the system from burning or catching on fire or burning itself out. But it never goes away, even if it's at its operating temperature, which makes me so frustrated, because when you're taking pictures with the flash, you have this kind of liability of being able to bring that image quality back for people who you show that image to on the back of your screen. So when you show that image to the back of your screen to clients, weddings, whatever you're doing, you want to be able to have consistent image quality from image to image. Now, that's almost next to near impossible, especially if you're using ETTL on the flash. But if the flash goes out because it's overheating, that's an even bigger issue, because you can't tell your client when that flash is going to start working again, when that image quality is going to come back. Which leads me to the next reason why you guys probably need to buy a second one to go with this flash. Now, the Yongnuo 600EXRT is designed for you to have multiple 600 series Yongnuo flashes, so you can work with them together in a radio type sense. But go ahead and buy that second flash like you know you want to, or the third flash like you know you want to, so you can have a backup so you don't have this issue. Now, the next couple of issues that I'm going through with the flash is all build quality based, but I didn't want to just say build quality because that doesn't really tell you exactly what's going on. So I'm gonna try my best to verbalize every little piece that's actually having an issue here. Now, the hot shoe locking mechanism. Now, those of you who know what I'm talking about, the hot shoe sliding locking mechanism, you just turn it this way to lock. Now, this is way better than the older ones from the old Canon and Nikon days when you had to turn it and turn it and turn it, and you don't even know if it's locked or not. No, these are nice locking mechanisms. Well, not so much in the Yongnuo, maybe in the 600 Canon world, but the 600 Yongnuo world, it's very, very frustrating to try to get this thing to lock on everything. Now, I'm not just talking about the camera. Actually, it locks pretty well on the camera. It has like this little lip that kind of covers over, so when you push it there and you lock it, that lip keeps it from coming back and forth in certain directions. But that lip also is supposed to help in different situations where you don't have it attached to the camera, and this is where things get bad, because you're supposed to actually, the Yongnuo 600EXRT, let's all be frank, it's designed to be taken off camera, just like a lot of other flashes. But since it has this radio triggering signal here and there, output and input kind of thing away from the camera, you have to mount it correctly to something else. You have to mount it to a light stand, which has a Yongnuo adapter mount on it, and that adapter mount, if it's cheap, definitely, if you're not able to crank it all the way so it locks on to that metal foot on the Yongnuo speedlight, it's going to slide off and fall, even if it's locked. I've had it fall several times, but I've had it fall when it's locked, and that really what makes me infuriated, because you spend all this money for this flash, you want it to work exactly how you want it to work, and you assume that you're doing everything in your power to make sure that it's in a safe environment and that it's safely latched on to whatever off-camera stand that you have it on. And if you're not able to, tighten that cheap mount that you have, because let's be frank, most of those speedlight adapter mounts are very, very cheap. Probably your best bet is to get the one that clamps over the flash head, like Godox has. Or Bowens has. But I digress. You have to make sure that if you're on a budget and you have these budget items, that everything on a budget may not work all that great, and you have to be prepared for something like that to fall. And it's fallen over quite a many a times. Now the locking mechanism still works. You just have to make sure it's extremely secure. So what I do now is I go to that stand and I try to test that mount as much as possible. I try to test that locking connection and making sure that if it falls over with the stand, and the flash doesn't just slide out on me. Another thing is the reflector. The built-in reflector field card for these things are terrible. Like I said, I have 3 600 EXRTs, and all of them have lost their reflectors. Maybe one of them have kept their reflectors inside, but whether it was a hot situation or whether I just pulled it too hard, they have all come out. They have just slid out and just kept going, and I just have it in my hand and the flash in the other hand, and it's just so infuriating because that's a cheap way to get nice bounce diffused light, better than something that you would get straight out of the actual flash without it being, diffused. But you can't do that when your field card deflectors always fall out, so now you're forced to buy some kind of external flash diffuser, something like a Gary Fung flash diffuser or Magmod or something like that, or just a generic bounce card. Always have one of those on you because you never know when those field cards, or yeah, you do know, those field cards are going to come out anytime, any given place, at any given temperature. Just be ready for it. Also, the high-speed sync command. It has a hard time syncing with cameras sometimes. Sometimes you'll buy a bum copy and it doesn't even do high-speed sync, and that's one of the main reasons why you buy the 600 EXRT, to have ETTL and high-speed sync and grouping and ratios and radio mode all in one flash. But with it being cheap, you have quality control issues. Sometimes you'll get a flash that does not have high speed, and that happened to me one time. Did I say high-speed sync? I think I said high-speed sync. Anyway, make sure you have that high-speed syncing capability, the ability to go beyond 200th of a second or 1/60th of a second to get to the 1/8000th of a second, because a lot of times you'll be in sunny situations or highly lit situations, even if it's snow outside. Highly lit situation, you're out there with a model or a client or family or anybody that you're, a graduate student, anybody that you're taking a picture of, and you can't get it off because you can't balance the exposure because your flash can't allow you to get your 8,000th of a second or, 16,000th of a second or whatever Sony's new electronic shutter allows you to get. So be wary. Make sure your high-speed sync works. You cut that high-speed H with the Thunder Shock on it. Cut that on and make sure it works. Build quality. Make sure that you don't drop your flash tube first. Don't go head first with your flash when you drop it, is what I'm saying. Because that flash tube is at the top and it will pop just like a filament in an old light fixture. And it's going to pop just like an old light bulb. And it's just like, how many times can you drop it before? Don't ever drop it. Not once. I can't even give you a ratio of how many times you should be able to drop it and it still be able to work. No, it's not. You don't have that luxury. So like I said, always have a secondary one on hand, all this other stuff. Like I said, the overheating, it stinks, it smells bad. All these things that I've mentioned are big problems, but those are only the beginning problems. Signal transference. Sending signals to understand what the camera is doing and when it wants to flash is a big problem with the Yongnuo 600 EXRT. When I have the flash on the camera or the speed light on the camera, it works perfectly fine. I usually never have issues. But when I have it on the camera and I flip the screen out to use live view and I poke the screen to take a picture, because there's a touch button enabled shutter, so I can just touch what I want to focus on and it'll automatically release the shutter from the ADD when I hold it overhead. And I do that quite a bit at sporting events. I do that at dances to get a different perspective. I do that a lot. I've added it into my workflow and it's a part of my product, but now I can't get even lighting because my flash doesn't want to flash sometimes. Sometimes I have to put on a whole different flash to get it to flash, which is the same flash, but it's just another flash. So the signals can be transferred accurately, so the flash knows when to flash when I have it in live view and I flip that screen out and I poke the screen. It's so infuriating for it not to work sometimes. And I don't know how to fix this problem, but just to change the flash. And even then, sometimes I have to go through all 3 of my 600 EXRTs just to make sure that I'm able to get that shot. Now, the benefit of that shot, that overhead shot, is it's not a typical must-have shot. Like that pose shot, those are must-haves. Those pose ones where somebody's, buddy, this, that, and the other, those hugs, those intangible shots, That's not what that overhead shot is for, so it's not that big of an issue. I'm not going to harp too much on that, but all that signal transference in live view, it really is a big problem. Also, a hot shoe terminal. The hot shoe terminal, the actual metal plate that sits on the bottom of your flash that connects to your camera, mine is weak now. I have a bad habit of grabbing the flash and the camera at the base of the speed light while it's attached to the camera, and that's weakened that little base mount with the pins in it, the metal base mount on the Yongnuo. But I've been using the 430EX, the old Canon flash, for years, and it's never had that issue. Maybe at the end, and the screws were just loose. All I had to do was just, tighten up the screws, and we were good to go. It was never the actual metal plate itself, and I don't even know how to fix that on my Yongnuo. So now I'm kind of down the flash because it does all of this stuff on top of the camera, and it's weak now. Maybe I need to pull out my screwdrivers and figure out how to fix this thing, because I'm not afraid to fix my Yongnuo 600EX RTs, but if you are, this might not be the flash for you. The beep. I've gotten 3 of them, and all of the beeps are pretty much different, and it's weird to me. And I was like, why are the beeps not only weaker, but they're different than one another? One's weaker than the other. One's, even though it's, it sounds different, it's still weaker. Get the beeping game right. Have a nice strong beep so we can hear our recycle times, whether we're in the studio or out in the field. Typically, I don't have the beep on when I'm out in the field, but when I'm in the studio, I need it. It's a confirmation. Just like the model needs a flash to know when to do the next pose, the photographer needs a beep to know when their cameras are ready for the next pose. The on-off switch is terrible. The on-off switch can get really weak. Mine has gotten really weak. It's went past its extent once, so it went past the off portion of the actual switch itself, and now I can't even feel what mode am I on. Am I on the on mode? Am I on the lock mode? Am I on the off mode? Because it doesn't have its notches anymore. Just another build quality issue. The 1/4-inch adapter on the side of the Yongnuo 600EX RT is not actually designed to be used. And you might be saying, well, why would you say that? Well, it's there. Well, yeah, but it's cheap. It's kind of like this composite metal plastic thread kind of thing going on. It looks like it's metal, but it doesn't feel like it's metal. So when you start to twist a metal 1/4-inch 20 thread into a 1/4-inch 20 thread breakout, so you can attach maybe a pocket wizard or something onto it, so you can have that close to the flash, it actually broke the threads off inside of the speed light, and it started to just wobble around in the controller portion of the speed light, and I couldn't get it out. I could have opened it up and took it out, but it was flashing until they arced out. One day I was at a school taking pictures, and it never worked again, and burned the flash out. It made a loud popping noise too. That was great. Just because I guess it was metal. I guess it was some kind of cheap metal, and it just got in there, and it just metal and plastic is not a good combination, especially not for a cheap cheap speed light. But I digress. The rubber caps that sit on the sides of the flash that cover up the ports to make sure that nothing gets inside of them, dust or anything like that, they're terrible. Especially the one that hooks into the old household syncing system for the old flashes. That one's the worst one because it always falls off, and it makes your flash look janky, like it's been used. But if you want to resell this, which you probably won't be able to, it just looks like it's being used. And I wanted to keep all my rubber caps on all of them, but that specific one has fallen off each time. And also the weather sealing gasket at the bottom, it's useless. It's gonna fall off after the second gig. No matter how hard I try to keep that weather sealing gasket on there, it always falls off. I've even gone as far as to keep my weather sealing gaskets for my 600EX RT just to make sure I can put it back on later, and it's always falling off. I am so frustrated with that thing. It's just bad. Like I said, plastic and metal are a bad combination, especially for a cheaper flash that don't really have good composites in them. It's just, oh my goodness. Since the swivel doesn't lock, that becomes an issue for those of you who are putting modifiers on top of that speed light. You might be saying, well, what do you mean? Well, if you get the Gary Fung flash diffuser, that thing is heavy to the actual speed light itself. So when you have it at a certain angle, it'll just flop down to the next angle and flop down to the next angle. If you tilt your camera some sort of way, or try to get a different shot. Now, like I said, I like to tilt my camera overhead and do a whole bunch of other stuff, especially at football games. Now it's football season. all these other things are happening where I'm trying to get, students are doing a whole bunch of things now in schools. When I go to schools and do events and stuff like that, I like to get overhead shots and get a span of, everybody jumping on, the Gatorade being thrown on the coat, stuff like that. That's what I want to get. So when I flip it over, the flash wants to go every which other way, and I can't have it happening that way, because usually when you're using a speedlight flash, you're bouncing it off a wall, or bouncing it somewhere else, or you need it to be at a certain angle for a certain orientation, whether it be horizontal or vertical. So yeah, horizontal. I get that from Jared Paulin. But yeah, that's what it is. Like, you need your camera in a certain way, in a certain fashion, to get a certain type of light quality. You can't get it with your flash just flopping around everywhere. Like I said, the diffuser panel is horrible. And the last couple of things that I want to talk about is the rear curtain sync and the high-speed sync. The high-speed sync has been pretty consistent. You can get it off camera. You can get it while the flash is on the camera. You can get it in most modes, but you can't get the rear curtain sync if the flash is off camera, because you have to actually click in the sync mode. And when you click in the sync mode, it just will not allow you to get rear curtain sync. It'll just give you the option for the high-speed sync. And I've tried this many a times. If anybody knows how to get rear curtain sync when the flash is off camera, then let me know. But if you can't, this is just something you can't do that I've found in my experience with the Yongnuo 600 EXRT. No rear curtain if the flash is off camera, or if you're in group mode, or if you're in ratio mode, or anything like that, like where you're in the studio and you want to maybe get light trails or something like that. You can't have that flash off camera. Why? I don't know. But you can do it when the flash is actually on the camera. I don't know the difference. I don't know why that would cause such an issue. Maybe it's some context or some more, information needs to be sent that's not being sent. I don't know. Maybe that's something Yongnuo needs to work on. Also, the zooming feature on the Yongnuo 600 EXRTs. Now, this wouldn't be an issue if the reflector panels stayed in place. But those reflector panels, when you actually slide them out of your speed light and you put them over top, it tells that speed light to go into like a wide 20 millimeter angle. Since that goes into a wide 20 millimeter angle, you can't go to the 200 millimeter width. You can't get any of those focal ranges for your flash's zoom at all. So since you can't get your flash's zoom anywhere like that, if that reflector breaks and that trigger or that whatever tells that sensor inside is stuck in one spot, then you're only going to be able to get 20 millimeters out of that flash the whole time. And like I said, that flash reflector panel always comes out. But a lot of people don't know that they need to push that sensor or that slide, that whatever's sensing, that little row, that little, I don't know what it is, but you need to push that back into the flash so it won't think that reflector panel is out. That's the only reason it goes to 20 millimeters. Matter of fact, you can't get 20 millimeters if you just manually dial it in. You can get 35, I think you can get 50, I think you can get 85, you get 100, 150, and 200. But those are the only focal distances for that flash that you can get. So that will start to mess up your ETTL and all the other stuff. So make sure those, if you have a panel reflector and it's on there, that it's all the way down. And if it has a sensor and that panel reflector is not on there, you need to get like a screwdriver or something like that to push it back in to make sure you're still getting the full range of your flash's zoom. But that's pretty much it, guys. I know I was on like kind of a rant there. All in all, guys, this is a flash if you want to get better image quality for the cheap. Notice that I still have pretty much all three of my flashes. They work, they have some issues. Maybe one of them don't mount all that great. Maybe one of them has, or three of them have broken diffuser panels, and one of them overheats a little bit more than the other. But they still all work, and I really can't complain past that. They might not be as reliable as you want, but you'll understand your flow with your Yongnuo 600 EXRTs, because I advise you, if you're gonna buy it, you buy multiple ones to be safe in every situation. But that's all I got, guys. This video came out of the blue because one of my subscribers had asked me about flash zooming and he or she not being able to get it back to its full zoom range. But that's it, everybody. Happy holidays, and I'll see you on the next video.